Alright, the last thing in this section 4.3 is example 3. We'll do a couple examples of this, but the reason why we factor is not just some random thing I want you to learn. It's so that we can solve equations that are written in quadratic form, where you have an x squared. You know, when we do linear functions like this, you don't have to write this down. You know, we have a method for solving this. You know, we subtract the 6 to both sides, and then we divide by 3 and we get our solution of 1. Well, for this, if we try to do that, we come across a problem where, you know, we can't isolate the x by itself. So this is where our factoring comes into play. And there's actually 3 or 4 methods we're going to look at, but factoring is the first technique of how to solve. And the first thing you have to look at is it set equal to 0? Because it'll sometimes say find the zeros, sometimes it'll say find the solution, or sometimes it'll say find the roots. All of those are asking you to do the same thing. So first thing, make sure it's set equal to 0. And when it is, which this one already is, you factor. And we just learned how to factor the problems like this. So list out factors of 36. So give me a second to write that down. And since we are trying to add these to get a -5, now that you've had some practice with factoring, we know that the bigger number needs to be negative. Okay? If the smaller number was negative, then you get a bunch of positive answers. But these will all add up to get you a negative number, which is what we want. Okay? And these are what add to get you -5. So x plus 4, x minus 9 is my factored form. And it's still set equal to 0. And here's the part, the easy part. The factoring is the hard part. And the easy part is the actual solving, because if you think about it, when you multiply two things, if you multiply something and you get 0, that means that one of these two things that you're multiplying to has to equal 0. Okay, so if you think about it, if I set this equal to 0, and I solve, I subtract 4 to both sides, I get -4. And if you think about it, if I plug -4 in for x, -4 plus 4 is 0. It doesn't even matter what this is. It can be any number. If I multiply it by 0, it's going to give me a 0. So this is one of my solutions. Same thing for this one. If I set this equal to 0 and solve, and I add the 9 over, you get +9. If you think about it, when you plug 9 into this x, 9 minus 9 is 0. You know, 9 plus 4 is 13. You know, 0 times 13 is 0. So that's my other solution. So that is all you do to solve. And you can check your work. You know, if you want to go through and check to see if your answer is correct, you know, store. We did this on our previous test. You can store, for instance, -4 is x, and then type in the original question, x squared minus 5x minus 36, and if it gets you 0 when you hit enter, then you're correct. Then if you want to store 9 as x, scroll up and re-type in the equation, hit enter, it'll get you 0 again. So the two answers that you found were both right. Okay? So you have to know how to factor. Okay? Let's do one more easy one, then we'll do a harder one, then that'll be it. Okay? So for this one, x squared minus x minus 42 equals 0. Okay? This one is already set equal to 0, so we're going to list out our factors of -42. So factors of 42 are 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 14, 4 doesn't go into it, 5 doesn't go into it, 6 does 7 times. And since we're trying to get a -1, we want these to add up to get me a negative, which means that my bigger numbers need to be the negative. Okay? Now you could, if you want to, do what we did in the last part of the video there where we list out the factors again, but I don't think you need to do that after you do them a few times. So which ones add to get you -1? That is 6 and -7. So my factors are +6 and -7. Okay, the hard part's done. Set this parentheses equal to 0. Solve it and you get -6. Set that parentheses equal to 0. Solve it and you get +7. Those are your two solutions. Remember, you can take those two solutions like we did in the last question, plug them back into the original. If it gets you 0, then you know you're correct. Okay. All right, last example, and then I'll let you all try these. It'll be the last video of the day. Let's do one that's not set equal to 0. Let's do this one. Let's do r squared minus 2r equals 80. Doesn't matter if you're using r's, x's, or y's, it makes no difference. Now to solve this, notice it's the first question we have that's not equal to 0, so we need to get it set equal to 0. So using the same techniques we did when we solved linear equations, we're going to move that 80 to the other side by doing the opposite. When you do that, you have r squared minus 2r minus 80 equal to, and then these cancel out to get you a 0. Once you do that, the problem is just like the last ones. List out your factors of negative 80. Again, it may take you a little while. 80 divided by 3 does not get you a perfect number. 80 divided by 4 is 20. 5 goes into 80 16 times. 80 divided by 6 doesn't work. 80 divided by 7, 80 divided by 8 is 8 and 10. And those should be all the factors. And remember, we're trying to get a negative 2, so we want these numbers to add up to get a negative. In order for that to happen, my bigger numbers need to be negative. That gets you negative 79, negative 38, negative 16, negative 9. There we go. 8 plus negative 10 gets you a negative 2. So those are my factors. R plus 8 because it's positive, and then R minus 10. Set each of those terms equal to 0. First one gets you negative 8. And the second one gets you a positive 10. And if you'll notice, it's just the opposite. I mean, here pretty soon you won't be able to just do that. But if it's an R plus 8, your answer is the opposite, negative 8. R minus 10, the opposite, positive 10.